Hey everybody, Dave here. Hope you're having an awesome day. So, first off, I just want to say thank you for this past week. I had over 3,000 new subscribers join, and so I just want to say welcome to my YouTube channel. And I'm doing another build this week, and then next week we'll do a 1M robot update. And if you don't know what 1M robot is, I'll leave a link below. But I found this little chapstick bottle, and it was done. Or not bottle, but container, and it was finished and about to be thrown away. And I thought, this looks like a little robot, and I think I can make something out of it. So, come on, let's do it. Okay, here is the chapstick bottle, and I'm going to go ahead and clean out the last little bit in there. And then I've got these little legs. I'm actually going to be doing a volunteer workshop for an art week. And a buddy of mine printed out these 3D legs because we're going to do a little trash build for my workshop. So I've got one of these legs, but the feet were a little too small. And so instead of throwing it away, I'm going to go ahead and utilize this with this Gundam part. And I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of glue on there and add this on. And it's just going to extend the foot out just so I have enough to have it stand. Now there was a little gap here in the bottom. So what I did was I just filled some glue and some baking soda or baking powder, and that will fill that in. And I'm marking where my joint is now blocked because of this. I just took my Dremel and I scored it, and it actually just snapped right off. So that actually worked out pretty nice. And then I'll take my Dremel and just clean that up so it's nice and clean, and then that joint fit right in. And now this is looking great. That's going to give me plenty of surface area for my robot to stand without him falling over. Now, I love the click of this, so I don't think I'm even going to glue this. I think that will hold it all together, but I do want to get these words sanded off, so I'm using a little bit of 1200 grit, I believe it's 1200 grit wet sandpaper, and I'll kind of work on this, wipe it down. The reason I'm doing this is when I spray paint it, I don't want the texture of those letters to come through, so I believe this nice clean surface is going to be perfect for me to put a nice little paint job on. So now I'm just drilling out some legs. I took my calipers, measured the size of the peg from the 3D printed leg that my buddy made for me, and kind of just pressure fitting those in, and that's going to work out perfect. I ended up gluing the knee and the ankle, but I just did the pressure fit on the hip there. Now I was playing around with the different hands, and that claw's not quite right, so I was thinking maybe guns, and then I was like, nah, this isn't a gun robot. And then I found this guy, which I got at a yard sale, and it has some water damage, so the electronics don't work, but those arms are awesome. So I think this arm is great. That thing, I might take that off. So what I did was I dremeled out a hole, and I found this little part that I got at work, and it was just electronic bits. I don't even know what this thing is, but it looks awesome. It looks like a welding torch or something. So that's kind of what I'm thinking if he's working on a robot and it's like so that's kind of what I'm doing here. I think that's going to work out pretty cool. I found this wire in my bits box, so I'm going to add that on a little bit later. And then I got this final faction part. I was going to do just one leg, and then I was like, you know what if he was working on this whole bottom portion of a robot? So I'm kind of drilling out a hole here. And then what I'm going to do is go to my wire bits box. Oh, look at all those yummy, delicious wires. Aren't they great? Don't throw any of this stuff away because you can use all of it. So I think this looks cool. It's going to look like a little burst of wires coming out. All right, let's jump back over to the leg here. I'm going to put on a couple of little beads to look like rivets. And I think that kind of completes the legs, and I'm happy with that. Now I've got these little wooden bases, and in my last video I talked about how I'm kind of cutting these scallops off. One of the reasons is it does look a little old-fashioned to me, but they're also really rough and they're not well made. So this is just a little bit cleaner. And then I grabbed a piece of cardboard. Oh, those things were delicious, by the way. I know, probably not great for me, but... and then I just am going to put a cardboard base on the top surface, and the reason I want to do that is I want to try and score some little design pattern into the cardboard. So I'm just using a little piece of wood, skewer, and then scoring that, and we'll see if that works. And I got some glue here. It's just an all-purpose craft glue, gluing that down, and then I'll glue this down. I'm going to go press this on books and let this dry. And while this dries, I want to mess around with the eye. Now I like this piece, but it is flat and I'm putting it on a curved surface, so it's not quite fitting properly. So a trick that I've learned is I'll take this 100 grit sandpaper and just wrap it around the cylinder. And then I'm going to grab my little piece here and then I'm just going to kind of sand it up and down. I got to hold it really carefully to make sure it stays in the correct orientation, but you just do a little bit of sanding, and after a couple of minutes, it's got a nice curve to it. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and I put some glue on there, and I'm going to go ahead and just glue this down. I'm using BSI Instacure medium gap fill, and I love that glue. It's a really nice glue. And then I found this little Gundam piece. I think it's like a foot piece, and then that, and it looked kind of like a little goatee and a mustache, so I love that. Now I'm going to try something. I put some tape down, and I've never actually scribed. I normally will actually glue polystyrene on, but instead I'm going to gouge in and make some little panel lines. So it actually worked pretty well. I've got some extra rivets and those little panel lines, so once we paint it, we'll see how well that holds up for me. Now I'm kind of just looking at the arm and trying to figure out the placement of it because I need to glue this arm on, and I think if it's looking like it's grabbing the wire and then that other arm's coming in and maybe welding, and then for his welder he needs some kind of pack to power it, so I thought this might be kind of cool, so I went ahead and glued that on, and I glued it up a little bit higher, so I think that's going to work. And now I got those wires that I found a little bit earlier. I thought if I glue this onto like the arm and then connect it onto that little power pack, it'll look as though that power pack is kind of running those different pieces of equipment. So I got one for both sides there, and I'm going ahead and gluing it onto the other little arm there. Now I wanted to make like a power supply on my little diorama, so I found this other chapstick bottle, a little final faction piece, and a little electronic component, and I think if I glue all those together, that will give a cool little feel. Took some guitar string, I'm gluing this onto the leg. I feel like that's going to add just a little bit more. And that little box there, it was almost a little too much, so I went ahead and removed it. But all right, I just purchased that Vallejo game wash. I normally am a huge fan of the Citadel wash, but I wanted to try this out. I actually saw Adam Savage using it on a build just the other day, so just putting a wash on and taking a paper towel, wiping this down. I'll kind of do this a couple times, and then I decided, you know what, I actually think I want to paint the body like a construction worker yellow, so I went ahead and painted the entire thing yellow. Now I'll be honest, the paint job looks a little gross at first, but it's okay because I'm going to go ahead and scratch away and kind of weather this whole thing up. So this actually worked out really nice because I have the silver under it, and that paint, until it's has a clear coat on it, it just scratches right off. So I'm kind of looking at some of the areas that would get weathered and worn down, and just taking my blade and scratching, or taking that other little pointy tool and scratching away little areas, and that gives a really nice weathered effect. I did the same thing for the legs, just to give kind of a beat up, worn look. And now I'm painting out that little power supply, and I think it adds a little bit of color. I found a couple of decals. When I did my organization, I lost all my decals. I cannot find them anywhere, but I did find this in a model kit. So I think this will be a nice little touch. I know some of you commented on the last airplane one, oh, it'd be nice if there were some decals on there. I agree 100%. I just couldn't find them anywhere. So I'm kind of just straightening these out, getting them to look nice, and I found a little orange decal that really pops on that red. Now I want a light, because the robot, it just wasn't enough, and so I thought if I can get a little flickering light up inside, maybe it'll look like he is working on it. So all I'm doing here is I'm just taking a soldering iron, and I'm taking apart this tea light, and then I'm rewiring it. I have another video how to do LEDs easily, so I'll put a link for that in the description if you want to know how to mess around with the LEDs. But this worked out all right. I'm kind of routing the wire down the leg, gluing that in place. I actually did end up painting that silver and did a little weathering over the top of that again, running it through my base, and I'll go ahead and pull that through. And then once that's kind of in place, I did glue those feet down, and then I'm soldering this back together. And now for the moment of truth, you put the battery in and it works. It's like, woohoo! Now it's not a ton of light, but it is, I feel like it's just perfect because it looks like when he's welding, it flickers a little bit. So I'm going to do a little bit of hot glue. I drilled this out with my drill press. It doesn't look beautiful, but get this hot glued in place, and I think we're going to call this one done. All right, there it is. That turned out really cool. This was super fun. I would say the robot didn't turn out exactly how I was originally thinking it would, but I think it turned out pretty nice in the end, and I'm pleased with it. I think the little flickering LED, it's a really subtle touch, but I like it. I think it adds to it. So, yeah, let's take some turnaround shots of this, and as always, it's a great day to be a toy nerd. Have a great one.